importante para pensar la realidad latinoamericana, detenerse un poco en qué ocurrió en Rusia, que quiero aprovechar para
I
leerles
think it's very important to understand what happened in Russia before thinking about Latin America. That's why I'm going to read you some of Lenin's reflections about this. The Russian Revolution exploded in February 1917, and Lenin called it an unfinished revolution, the first stage of the first of the proletarian revolutions caused by the war. Why? Because at that time the soldiers, workers and peasants that fought in the imperialist war were actually against the war. They wanted peace. The insurrection happened in Russia, but the proletariat and the peasantry were unable to seize the total power. Instead, a dual kind of power was established. On the one side, workers and peasants organized in Soviets, and on the other hand, bourgeois power that took over the state apparatus. So, this dual power existed for a time in Russia. That is why Lenin talks of the first phase of the first of the proletarian revolutions, because really it is a revolution in which most of those who fought were workers and peasants. And it was engendered by the war, because, as I already said, the horrors of the imperialist war set off this uprising in the Russian people.
Entonces, en ese momento Lenin decía, en febrero todavía no había ocurrido la Revolución Socialista de Octubre.
In February 1917, even when the Socialist Revolution of October had not yet taken place, Lenin saw that it was necessary to put very radical measures in place, measures that were not socialist yet, but were steps towards socialism. He could already see that the direction this revolutionary process was taken. Why did he say that it wasn't socialist yet? Because he was very well aware of the countries being underdeveloped, which would prevent him from installing socialism straight away. We have already said that Marx thought socialism could grow in the developed countries. In such a case, there were big industries with their collective workers and an enormous advance of the technological base of the process. These didn't exist in Russia. So, in this country, a step has to be taken to go forward to socialism. I want to read you something Lenin wrote about this from the book The Proletarian Revolution and the Renegade Kautsky. What was Lenin saying at that time? This was written in November 1918. He was given a retrospective view of things and wrote, that is, a few months after the victory in February Revolution, long before the October Revolution, that is, long before we took power completely, we said openly and explained to the people that the revolution couldn't stop at that stage, since the country has moved ahead, capitalism has advanced, misery has reached levels never seen before, which, whether you like it or not, will demand that steps are taken in the direction of socialism, since there is no another way of moving forward, of saving the war-weary country, and of alleviating the sufferings of the workers and the exploited. Lenin had to argue at that moment against people in his own party who were influenced by the Second International mechanism position. A few weeks before the October Revolution, the catastrophe that is threatening us in that volume, in that book, Lenin says, it is impossible to stand still in history in general, and in wartime in particular. We must either advance or retreat. It is impossible in the 20th century Russia, which has won a republic and democracy in a revolutionary way, to go forward without advancing towards socialism, without taking steps toward it. And what he says next is very interesting. steps conditioned and determined by the level of technology and culture. Large-scale mechanized production cannot be introduced in peasant agriculture, that is, small-scale independent production, nor abolished in the sugar industry. These are the objective conditions for moving ahead. Then he says, to be afraid of advancing means retreating. Finally, I want to stress that the Russian Revolution breaks with preconceived European ideas. The idea of European social democracy, which maintained in a sort of dogmatic interpretation of some of the things Marx said, that the proletarian revolution could not be successful without the existence of the objective premises for the development of productive forces that would allow an advance towards socialism. So, these people criticized Lenin and the Bolshevik, saying it was a mistake to have tried to build socialism in those underdeveloped conditions. I think that it's important to look at one of the last things Lenin wrote in January 1923, not long before he died. There he attacks these people from the Second International and analyzes why the revolution broke out in Russia and not in Europe. So, if the objective conditions are the supreme importance, why did the revolution occur in Russia instead of in Europe, which has the right conditions? And he answered that the hopeless situation created by the war creates the political condition of what he called the merging of the peasant war and the workers' movement. That is to say, with the unity between peasant workers and soldiers, the people who were suffering from the effects of the war, the conditions to move forward were created. And he said, you are saying that we are backward. You say that to build socialism we need civilization. Very well. But why could we not first create the prerequisites of the civilization in our country by the expulsion of the landlords and the Russian capitalists, and then start moving towards socialism? Which book did you read that says it is impossible to have similar variations of the habitual historical order of things? I'm telling you this to show how important it is to have a concrete analysis of what is happening in each situation. We must not try to make life follow blueprints, but just the opposite. We must take account of what is happening in reality and try to understand it, to theorize about it. We must not be mechanical. We must understand that revolutions happen when a series of contradictions occur, and this can break down any theory. That happens in Russia, and also in various countries became part of the Soviet Union, where the revolution was born from conditions stemming from First Imperialist World War. This also happened after the Second War, which spread socialism through Eastern Europe as well as in Asia and in Africa. Once again, it was not that the contradiction between the development of productive forces and the relation of production has matured, as the Second International claimed, but it was once again the political condition created by the war that allowed this advance towards socialism to take place, and socialism was spread to a large part of the world. The more powerful forces in all these cases was the peasantry, and not the industrial working class, which was a minority. I am referring to the revolution in Asia and in Africa, to the national liberation movement which emerged in those countries.